the powers of speed. Early on in this race.
Round 11 of the Spec-5 World Tour. It's a cool and cloudy day at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course as we bring the MX-5 action of the Spec-5 World Tour to Mid-Ohio. 2.2 miles of racetrack, 13 corners, a fast back straight, but some twisty sections, some elevation change, and hopefully some side-by-side racing coming our way as we bring you live coverage on HJBC. I'm David Haynes with Alex Coffard and Michael Derby today. Alex, welcome to HJBC. Good to be with you as they start qualifying. You got any favorite facts about the circuit or about the car?
Miata is one of my favorite cars, so this is one of my favorite tracks to drive on. So the combo is fantastic, and I am really excited about that. As for the track itself, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so a lot of beautiful lawns and a lot of greenery on the way there. But as for the track itself, it's pretty unique in the fact that there's no stores, nothing like that nearby. And yeah, so no, I'm excited about the racing, excited to be here. So thank you, David.
I saw a Dollar General and some Amish people, so I think that's mainly what's going on around. But it's a racetrack that's been around a long time. It's well known and well loved, and right now you're looking at the drivers from Pro and Open class on their out lap before they have 4 flying laps in qualifying. Andrew Gilliland, winner last time out in open class. Depending on exactly how you look at it, when we get towards the end of the championship, he'll probably end up as the championship leader, but he's missed a few races, so he's counting on some good results still to come. and then the drop weeks to fall in his favor. There's no question Ronnie Coates is leading pro class as they're about to start their first of 4 flying laps.
4 laps, that's enough to give yourself a couple good shots at it, but it's not enough that you can just casually put your paces in. You got to get on it quick. So I'm excited to see who's able to step up fast and put down not just a banker lap, but really extract the most that they can in these couple laps.
Depending on where you're watching, how you're watching, one of the great ways to keep up and get even more information, hjbc.live is our live timing. It's up right now, and so you've got a particular driver that you're trying to follow in qualifying. If they're not on screen, that's one of the best places you can look. So starting the first flying laps for these drivers like Andrew Gilliland, like Rui Coimbra, is now at that hairpin at turn 2. Do you think that's another one of those corners where just the bit of elevation around here sort of makes it challenging, affects what the racing line to take?
Yeah, not only it's hard to feel or take the elevation, but it's good at blocking your vision of where the curbing is, where the apex is, and where track out is. So for them, it's going to be relying on just muscle memory of hitting the apex, tracking out, carrying a lot of speed. And if you're not confident in your lines, that's where you can really lose out by guessing and checking and not hitting the ideal line.
So there's no times in qualifying yet, but we're about to get a few of them. It is a quick little lap around here, like we saw, barely over 2 miles, shorter than taking the oval at Daytona around here at Mid-Ohio. So we're about to see what the first lap brings for everyone, and that short lap also means that your first, maybe even your second flying lap, you're still warming up the tires, so it could be quick times late on in this session. Compared to early on or in the middle of the run, like for some of the longer circuits, like Road America that we were at relatively recently. Camden Hibbett sends himself to the top, then Andrew Gilliland, then Ronnie Coates, Rui Coimbra, Brian Chabelski, the 5 times right now. But still, there is a lot of time to be found lap 2, lap 3, and even into lap 4.
Yeah, additionally, we've seen a couple people go off. The incident board is being lit up pretty heavily. So not just being fast, but keeping on track is going to be something these guys really have to nail down quick, because if you're already eliminating yourself, that's 25% of your available laps. So I want to see who can keep it clean.
Eugenio Pellicci of Italy goes to second on his first flying lap. But his first sector of the second attempt, no improvement. So we keep an eye on what's happening in open class. Well, Andrew Gilliland currently best placed there in third, but Orlando Harrell is starting a lap here. Out of lap 1, where you got that weird pit exit where there's the sort of the curbing protecting it, and you want to get all over that curbing at turn 1 and then around towards turn 2. There's been only a few open class drivers at some of the races of late, but we do also have Zeus Dalston, Charles Vaccaro, Matthew White, Alex Harrison, and Greg Mack in the class here at Mid-Ohio. So both categories are ones to watch when we get into the racing and also through this qualifying.
Yeah, talking about that curb, we see the 31 going over it right now. It's a challenge. You want to hit it as much as you can, but sometimes it compresses the suspension in a way that'll launch your car or kind of get the rear end hanging out, and you'll lose some time. So being aggressive about it is important, but you got to be smart. You can't just be reckless as you're trying to jump over it.
Another set of laps completed from a handful of these drivers, and it sees Eugenio Pellicci, who only fractionally improved on that lap, get dropped a bunch of spots as Rui Coimbra, Zach Burke, Tom Ayton all jump ahead of him. Matt White's first time is in, and it's 4th in open class, I think. You'll see if Orlando Harrell will jump up from that 16th outright that he is right now into 14th outright. And like we say, with these cool-ish track temperatures around a short lap, I think the tyre just keeps on giving, keeps on getting better as you go.
For sure. And it can almost be surprising with how much grip it has in cooler temps. And the breakaway isn't as smooth in hot temps. So it can give you a lot of grip and give you a lot of confidence, but as you cross that threshold over 100% grip, it can get kind of sketchy. So that might be where some of these guys are gaining the time or struggling with their time, is the difference in temperatures where maybe they're not used to it. Maybe they're practicing in a warmer temperature.
17 drivers with qualifying times right now, 18 drivers out on track, 2 that we might expect for the race, but that aren't out in qualifying right now. Michael Chase's lap completed to go to 4th place. Camden Hibbett, though, still up the top, and he's got purple sector to kick off his 4th flying lap. We'll keep an eye on how many laps they've used. It's not just a 15-minute session, but it's 4 flying laps that count to qualifying. It's Geordie Fike as he crosses the line. But Camden Hibbett is still up and looking to keep his grasp firm on a potential pole position. He's trading sector times with Ronnie Coates, who's been one of his biggest rivals so far this season. So there's Hibbett, there's Coates. Only a 1/10 of a second to separate them on the times that they've put to the board so far. Michael Coates jumps up to 3rd with the lap time he's just completed, but we're not far away from seeing what qualifying can bring for Camden Hibbett and for Ronnie Coates in their ongoing battle for race victories. And for Ronnie Coates, with the red car number there signifying Pro Class points leader as we have round 11 of the season here at Mid-Ohio. Camden Hibbett, no improvement. Ronnie Coates, subtle improvement, but it's not enough. He falls a very short amount away from the pole. Camden Hibbett improves. Rui Coimbra jumps up to 2nd. All change at the moment up front.
Yeah, Rui Coimbra going from 6th all the way up to 2nd. That's a great lap. The field was really close, especially around the 36.3s. There's 5 cars in the 36.3s, so every 10th counts. And for Coimbra, that was a 6-7 tenths of a jump. So for him, that's a fantastic starting position change that he's got lined up for himself.
It's also super competitive for that open class pole position. Andrew Gilliland has it at the moment, but only 0.03 of a second quicker than Greg Mack. So those two are going to start near each other on the grid. The way things stand at the moment, about half of the cars are off track because they have, and in the pits, in the paddock, because they've used their qualifying times and used all of their laps. Here's Michael Coates, 5th at the moment, about to finish his last lap. Doesn't look like it's been an improvement, but he finds something right at the end just to shave it a little closer towards 4th place, keep him in 5th at the moment. Zeus Dalston from the open class. We've seen all the lap times from Andrew Gilliland. We've seen all the lap times from Greg Mack, and Zeus Dalston pips them both to go to the open class pole. A great final lap from him. And Ronnie Coates, what does he have left? At the moment, it says he sits 3rd. I think his qualifying is all done, and he remains in that 3rd position until Michael Chase crosses the line.
Yeah, talking about that open class pole, it is 3 cars within 1/10 of a second. In fact, a 0.5 tenth a second. So it is very tight up front.
Tight all through the field, and that's what we love. Everyone's got an equal car in Spec-5 World Tour, and it's a type of racing car, a category known for just being super competitive. You'll always find someone at a similar pace to you that you can race, and that's the goal, that's the aim. So a lot of drivers went out on track immediately in the qualifying session, did their outlap, did 4 flying laps, parked it, they're done. There's a few other drivers on some different run plans here. And so Eugenio Polici's done, but he's out on track still. This looks like Ray Lombardi's 3rd flying lap, if I'm accounting for it correctly. So he is going to run just a little bit later and hope that those clouds come over and give him a cool track late on in the session. They're coming and going, so there's a bit of luck to that.
Yeah, you got 15 minutes, so maybe you try to get a couple in and then hope to see if conditions change. especially if you're not making huge differences. It might be worth the risk.
This is even a little bit higher than driver's eye view, but there's just enough elevation around here that that's a blind crest. This is kind of blind on the exit. You got to trust that when the track drops away, that yellow curbing's there. There's a few places where from sitting low in the race car, looking just out over the hood, you don't see all of where the racetrack goes.
That's what makes it fun, is it makes it challenging. You have to rely on more than just your vision as a sense. And so that's one of the reasons that this track is so well revered. The difficulty and the flow just makes for great racing.
No improvement on that lap from Ray Lombardi as he goes and starts another one, and this is the driver's eye view as he gets into the first sector of another lap. He currently sits 15th outright as far as things are concerned. This is that elevation I'm talking about. I don't think if that corner was flat, you'd dive in so early. But because of the way the track then drops away, you don't want to be washed out and wide. So that's the line that Ray Lombardi takes, going up through the gears down the back straight here. And the highest speed comes breaking into the corner that they know as China Beach. And the runoff actually drops away a long way out there if you're unfortunate to find yourself in that area. And then over the crest in this left-hander here. How's it tracking for Ray Lombardi? I think he's up so far. So if he can be tidy through the rest of the lap, he can move up on the grid.
Yeah, so we catch him doing the back half of this track. Looks like he's got good lines, got a challenge here. So just a couple more corners, see if we can stick it together and move up.
It's just the final carousel section to close out the lap here. Pit entry out wide in that corner there as well. I've seen one or two drivers practicing that pit entry because they're going to need it when they pit in the 45-minute race coming up. Ray Lombardi crosses the line and he does improve, and it's a good improvement to 6th place. I think he only found about half a second, but when you look at how close all of the times are, that will jump you from 14th, 15th up to 6th place.
Which is so important, because if you're racing with people that are just right around the same pace as you, it makes it challenging to pass. And so by starting in front of them, even though it's really close position-wise, it can save you a lot from a battle perspective. And his goal is not to be battling with these guys, it's to be in front of them. So good for him. That was a good lap. As we see Eugenio, I'm guessing this has got to be his last lap because time is running out. There's only cruising through 30 seconds left, so he's just getting some extra practice in for race starts.
Yeah, I don't know how much practice Eugenio Pellicci got in, but I think his 4 laps were done a little while ago, but he's still out there. Everyone else is off circuit, and the only cars that we didn't see come out in qualifying was Joshua Soto and Charles Vaccaro, so we still might see them in the race. No guarantee, but 1 second covers your top 14 cars, and nothing in a time margin sense separates the top 3 cars in the open class. You see it here, and all the times in the order looks correct. Camden Hibbert on the front row with Rui Coimbra. Championship leader Ronnie Coates alongside Michael Chase, and then Michael Coates and Ray Lombardi in that 5th and 6th there. Zach Burke in 7th. Zeus Dalston is the best placed open class driver, denoted by the blue stripe, but Andrew Gilliland and Greg Mack hot on his heels. In fact, I see all 3 of those cars within a 1/10 of a second in that qualifying. Got Brian Chabowski, Eugenio Pellicci, Tom Aiton, Orlando Herrell, Geordie Fike, Matthew White, Sean Hayes, Alex Harrison completing the cars with qualifying times. And then, like I said, Joshua Soto and Charles Vaccaro. And thank you to the Spec-5 World Tour supporters. You can see some of their car numbers there in the gold, silver, and bronze, depending on what contribution they made to support the season, support the league and its hosting costs, and let us broadcast. Right, where's your eyes going to be when we go racing, Alex? Is it going to be on that front row, Camden Hibbett and Rui Coimbra, or is it going to be on the open class in the mid-pack but looking super competitive?
Definitely the mid pack. There is a really heavy braking zone going into China Beach, and a lot of people that feel like they might not have got the qualifying time that they could have got, or maybe they want to be in front of a couple people they feel like they're quicker than. That's a really popular place to try to pass. It's really heavy braking, and on cold tires, it's a confidence check where you have to essentially trust in your cold tires, trust in your talent, and if you can make that happen, you can gain several spots.
So there's no option on iRacing here at Mid-Ohio for a full formation lap. They all start just before Thunder Valley there and then immediately through the carousel. Spec-5 World Tour normally does a full formation lap everywhere they go. So as you see, the pace car stays out here and we are going for a full formation lap, and that'll let everyone get just a little more tyre temperature and also actually let the whole field pack up properly, because when you have the
So like he was saying, that we are heading into our extra formation lap. So the drivers just see a lot of them cruising, a couple of them weaving through, trying to get some extra heat in the tires. Kind of what I was talking about going into China Beach and early on in the laps where you don't have warm tires, you got cool tires, and that's where a lot of incidents can happen. That's where a lot of accidents can happen by overdriving the car or just misjudging where your braking points are in relative towards what it is when you're heated up, when you're nice and warm. So interesting to see some of these guys weaving. Some of them looks like they're dragging the brakes, trying to get some brake temperature going. And then other guys just cruising. They're either happy with what they're doing or they don't think it matters that much. So be interesting to see. I actually wonder how much it helps. There's definitely some confidence in a lot of the people doing it, so about half and half depending on which side that you believe in. But
it's got to be something. I'm back and I forgot what I was saying when I disappeared. I think it was going to be something about the pace car speed that's actually gotten a little quicker and more consistent at some circuits.
And slows down at some places, which is important too, because that car can really run away in some low speed stuff.
So they're most of the way around. This is where they originally started off. And now the pace car about to pull in and send us racing at Mid-Ohio in the Spec-5 World Tour. There's the pace car. There's our beautiful field. So close in qualifying, hopefully so close in the racing as the green flag waves. Camden Hibbett on the inside leads them down. Looks like Zach Burke maybe needing to check up a little bit as they're 3 wide heading in towards turn 1. No matter how much weaving you did, how much brake dragging you did, you're still not going to be cherry ripe as far as the tyre temperature and the confidence goes. And they head towards the hairpin at the keyhole, turn 2. Great start from Camden Hibbett, from Ronnie Coates, from Rui Coimbra, and look at Andrew Gilliland trying to make some gains around the outside on the start.
Yeah, great job through the whole field. Still too wide in some places, but getting to nose to tail. So no incidents that I saw. It looks like everyone's clean, and that's really all you can ask for a start.
So there's Zach Burke having a little look around. There's Michael Chase maybe hoping to get back on Andrew Gilliland, who's worked his way up to the 5th outright. Put a handful of pro cars, Michael Chase, Michael Coates, and Ray Lombardi, between himself and Zeus Dahlson and Greg Mack, who are 2nd and 3rd in class at the moment. Everyone works their way over the crest. Then over the next crest, double right-hander here again, blind on the exit. You'll see so many drivers do a little bit of lawn mowing out there. I think Ray Lombardi is doing this time around. There's Orlando Harrell and Alex Harrison and Sean Hayes back there battling towards the tail of the field. Looks like we didn't get Joshua Soto or Charles Vaccaro on the grid. And Matthew White brings up 18th place at the moment, about to finish the first lap.
One lap down, looks like 43 and some change minutes to go. Still nose to tail, no one's broken away too much. So as we see, like you're saying, these guys pushing off into the grass, trying to use the entire track, which is a challenge. You go a little bit too far and it gets real dangerous. So they're right on that edge of pushing the car as far as they can.
Super close right here. Ronnie Coates is almost bump drafting Camden Hibbett, and I think he might have to in a moment through that little right-hand kink, and they are all over each other. Rest of the field getting closer, and Ronnie Coates elects to save fuel. Rui Coimbra elects to save fuel as Zach Burke then pops down the inside for third place. They're now side by side. A check up at the top of the hill with that side by side for Andrew Gilliland. And now he slots back in line.
And you can see how much the top two broke away just from the battle for third, fourth. They've closed it up a little bit, but that's kind of the hope, is the cars behind you get into a battle where they're going too wide through these sections, because there's so much in the form of flow and in corners that you lose a lot of time by not lining up. So we'll see if they're able to make the move stick or if they're going to continue to battle. But if they continue to battle, this might be a good escape route for Camden and Ronnie to run away.
Another lap completed, and it's one continuous train of Mazda MX-5s from the race leader back to Alex Harrison in 17th place. It's like Matthew White has just dropped off the tail of the leading group, but everyone else entirely inseparable as we have a change for the lead. Camden Hibbett pulls to the inside, lifts off early. Ronnie Coates goes round the outside into the race lead. You've got almost a game of chicken going on up front.
Yep, and then you see nice easy, they back out of it, still try to line up one by one, so not too much in the form of battling, but it's early on, so that's to be expected. I'm sure as we get closer to the tail end of the race, that will not be done as easily. There's going to be a lot more in the form of defense and battling, but as of right now, just come as it goes.
So as they settle into a rhythm here, you've got a couple of big movers so far, like Zach Burke, who came from 7th on the grid to 4th. Andrew Gilliland, who came from 9th on the grid to 5th, now leading his class. And Zach Burke wants another one through Thunder Valley. He's side by side with Rui Coimbra, looking to go around the outside. There's a squeeze, there's contact. There's a big checkup, and Andrew Gilliland gets hit from the race lead. Zach Burke collects the spin, and they're both back on track. But yeah, Zach Burke brave to go around the outside there. Had a little bit of contact, spun around, and then Andrew Gilliland got hit from behind. There was nothing he could do. And he's halved the already meager trunk space of his Mazda MX-5.
Yeah, and that's the worst when you have nowhere to go and there's other cars that are in an incident, and there's nothing you can do. And he has to deal with that for the rest of the race. There's a lot of damage. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully he's able to keep up with the pace. The aero model can be pretty punishing at times, depending on where you get hit and how you get hit. But if he's able to keep up and stay in the draft, then he'll be able to continue to fight this out.
Looks to do so side by side with Orlando Harrell, side by side for the race lead again between Ronnie Coates and Camden Hibbett. They're going to do their best to try to bring the train back together, and after that, let everyone catch back up to the race lead once again. As you see Rui Coimbra in third, Michael Coates managed to sneak through all of the chaos pretty well, as he's now up to 4th. And then Michael Chase, Ray Lombardi, Zeus Dalston now leads open class from Greg Mack in 2nd, and then I think Tom Ayton also picked up a chunk of spots there as well.
Yeah, that really almost looked like the open class was going to run away with it. But now we got Zeus and Greg battling each other for that lead position in the open class. So kind of bringing it back in. And I'm sure as we continue this race, it'll come and go position-wise and strategy-wise.
Sean Hayes has obviously picked up some damage there because he's been through pit lane, only driver to go through pit lane, and he won't make it to the end from here, so he will unfortunately also need another stop after that. Everyone else looks to stay out to reach the fuel window, and that includes open class championship leader Andrew Gilliland. There he is. It doesn't seem to be suffering too badly. Again, you're right on that sometimes a little bit of damage will cost you a lot of speed, and then something that looks like it should hurt you, you kind of get away with it.
Yeah, and as the driver, I'm sure you're trying to figure it out as soon as you can, because you're kind of stuck in that limbo of not knowing how damaged you are, how much you need to push. Because if you lose a bunch of positions in a incident like that and you have a good car, you want to make your way back up quick. You want to get that in the past and continue to just try to run your own race, get back up to the front. So I'm sure he's doing that right now, figuring out exactly where his car is and trying to push right back up there.
Two Club Ohio drivers in the field, and they're Camden Hibbett and Andrew Gilliland, two good friends. And this is effectively their home track, Mid-Ohio. Probably the biggest sports car and road course racing track in Ohio. It's got Nelson Ledger's beat for that, and I don't think there's many others. And you can't race your Indy car around the airport at Cleveland anymore.
Well, some of these cars might be able to do it in the parking lot, but yeah, I don't think there's really much in the form of other tracks here. And this is such a popular track for club racers all the way through pro racing. So definitely a familiar track to those guys, I'm sure. And not just them, but everyone in this field, just because it's such a fantastic track.
Quite a bit of testing, I think, seems to happen here. If Sebring's booked out, you'll get some driver testing, car testing stuff happening here at Mid-Ohio because of its central location within the region, and then also relatively close to some Honda facilities. Bit of contact there as you have this beautiful shot there. Oh, there's a bit more contact between Tom Athon, Alex Harrison, and Andrew Gilliland, I think, was squeezing his way through there.
Yeah, and they're still side by side, so they haven't solved this one all the way out. Harrison looks to be on the outside going really wide into the grass, drops 2 tires, and he will concede that position. So we got to fight front all the way through the back.
And he has kicked off in the last couple of laps. Some shuffling of positioning happening. And Ronnie Coates leading them at the completion of another lap with Camden Hibbett right behind him. Those two entirely inseparable since the drop of the green flag. Rui Coimbra and Michael Coates have stayed close. Michael Chase and Ray Lombardi seem to be getting close as well. And there's Zeus Dalston, open class leader, within sight and touching distance of the outright leader. And Greg Mack, his main rival in category, just on the fringes of, I think, where the slipstream, where the toe would get to.
Which is really dangerous for him because Zeus is right in that draft of Ray Lombardi. So if he's able to chain his car up, that might be a great way to create some pace, create a gap, and really distance yourself from the people that you're racing.
I think Fleetwood Mac said you can never break the chain. So Greg Mack has Eugenio Pollicci behind him. Pollici's made up a couple of spots in this race as well by the looks of things. Yes, 12th on the grid to 9th. And that's this next group of 4 cars here behind the leaders, probably hoping for a little bit more side-by-side for the race lead that is not coming just yet.
Well, we're still not even a third of the way through the race, so there's a lot of time left. There's definitely already been a little bit of contact that's shuffled some cars around. So if I was in this field, I'd definitely be interested in just kind of waiting it out. The only reason I would feel otherwise is if you thought that you could flat out pull away from the group. But otherwise, why not save some fuel, kind of feel out the field, let the race come to you, and kind of figure it out in pit lane and try to make a jump from there.
Yeah, when you look at how close the margins are out on track here for all of the drivers, and you think sometimes we get variation of pit stop times. One driver will have 18 seconds of fuel, one driver will take 22 seconds of fuel, and you look at that 4-second difference in the pit lane, you go, 4 seconds would put the leader back in 8th. 4 seconds would put 8th place to the lead if they could, magically conjure it up. So there is always a lot to be gained with managing your fuel burn in the pack, managing your momentum, and then making sure you really nail your pit entry, nail your pit stop time, and your way out of the pit lane.
Yeah, and you never know how much the car in front of you or behind you is saving, if they're pushing as hard as they can just to keep pace, or if they're cruising. So it's always in the back of your mind as a driver. Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? I'm sure these guys race each other enough. They kind of have illusions towards what's happening, but you never know for sure. So I definitely feel being in the lead's a slight disadvantage because you don't have that luxury of just kind of lifting and coasting. But at the same time, it's probably the safest place. You're least likely to get caught in any incidents. You get the easiest clear path into pit lane. So, half a dozen of one, 6 of another. Take your pick.
Ronnie Coates is on the defensive through the keyhole, turn number 2. Camden Hibbett stays out wide, cuts back for a late apex and looks to get some momentum. A lap away from the pit window opening. Now, most drivers normally go pretty long into the pit window before they make their stop. But if you've got a dance partner, you can make something happen earlier in the pit window if you look. Big check up there between 2nd, 3rd and 4th as Ronnie Coates tried to slot back in line behind Camden Hibbett, who now leads the race.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly with the dance partner. If you feel like you're running good laps with the car in front of you, car behind you, you want to keep that going. And conversely, if you feel like they're slowing you down or they're trying to battle you and you're overall not gaining time from it, that's the time to try to break up. So the front group, 1st and 2nd, 3rd, 4th, a little bit behind, but it's really a train 1st through 5th, pretty solid. And so I'd be pretty surprised if someone tried to jump in early, but you'll never know.
This is all looking rather prosperous for Zeus Dalston as he leads open class at the moment. Still just within this touching distance of your leading 7, but his next nearest rival in Greg Mack has ended up behind Eugenio Pellicci and Zach Burke. And now it goes a little more pear-shaped as well as pear-coloured for Greg Mack, as he might actually lose out to Brian Tabelski here. So all of that creating more time, but also more track position and cars between Zeus Dalston leading open class and Greg Mack in 2nd.
And sometimes as a driver, making mistakes can lead to more mistakes. I feel like you got to make changes, you got to drive different, and I'm not saying that's the case, but that definitely could be the case moving forward. So he's got to be able to have a short-term memory, something that I struggle with when I'm driving, and just get back to where he was, because his qualifying pace was right there with everyone in the open division. And if he's able to hit that and keep that pace going, then he might be able to catch back up.
And obviously, keeping it clean, flowing some rhythm can do a lot for you to run with someone who might be half a second a lap quicker than you, but if you make no mistakes, you'll stay with them. You don't necessarily need to match their pace, but you do need to match their consistency. We've had another driver through pit lane. It's Geordie Fike, and that's the first car to stop in the pit window, i.e. we think they can make it to the end from there, and Geordie Fike takes 16 seconds of fuel. A reminder that hjbc.live has all that kind of information if you want to check out the live timing. When you look back to some cars that haven't stopped, it's the race leaders. Andrew Gilliland is in the lane, and so he will get that damage fixed up and then also fuel to get to the end. But I think this suggests that the damage was noticeable.
Yeah, even just getting a little bit of that aero damage fixed can make a big difference. And sometimes just confidence. When you are a little bit slower in a straight line, then you just try to get every little bit fixed that you can, because you're not going to be struggling pressing the gas pedal. But when you see those numbers go red, because you're just a little bit more down, or drag, a little bit more drag, it can be demoralizing. So if you won't jump in early, get it fixed, and get back out there and hit the laps that you're hitting before.
A little bit spicy between Camden Hibbett and Ronnie Coates there, much to the delight of, say, Rui Coimbra, Michael Coates, but also Ray Lombardi and Zeus Darlston, who get even closer. There's your top 7. And the gap between them and Eugenio Polici slimming. Polici bringing Zach Burke along for the ride, while Jabelski and Greg Mack have dropped back, no longer able to do the same kind of pace that Polici's got and that the leaders have got. Don't see anyone going for pit entry here. Jabelski might have looked like he was considering it. No, just a wider line for a late apex. What's happened to Alex Harrison? A lot of damage, a blown engine. And where did that happen?
Coming into the double right-hander, let's see, gets a little bit loose over the crest, just gets oversteer and then hard into the barriers, pushed right back out into the track, and that car is beat up. So he has to tow, not able to limp it back to pit lane.
The engine's toast. I think the steering was toast. No good, and he was just right in behind and made a mistake coming over the crest. They're side by side for the race lead again. Camden Hibbett is going to try to take it, but this is what's great about this section of racetrack. If the driver around the outside can hang just a little bit, then they're still there. They come back. What about into this right-hander? Surely this is where the car in the left lane has to yield, but no. Ronnie Coates back to the race lead. Camden Hibbett now under pressure from Rui Coimbra. And it all gets tantalizing up front. Eugenio Polici and Zach Burke are right there, and what was 4 cars for the race lead now becomes 9.
And that's what we talk about with battling. It's always faster to line up, and so while you might want that position, it can create an issue where instead of fighting 1 or 2 people, you're fighting a bunch.
Alex Harrison will come back out, but he's going to be in a tough spot. There's a whole heap of other cars, a raft of them hitting the pit lane there. Ray Lombardi, Zeus Darlston, and Eugenio Polici. So just as we got the band together, a few of them are going to split off for a bit.
I wonder how much of that is coordinated and how much of it's reactionary. So we'll see what these guys are able to do, if they're able to pair up leaving, or if anyone's able to maybe fill the tank just a little bit less and jump out and break free of everyone else.
Yeah, I'm looking. We've got a handful. We've got the 2 drivers, Hibbett Motorsports, Andrew Gilliland and Camden Hibbett, but then there is a chunk of Team Esport Racer guys who might be having some chat about when to pit, what the leaders are doing, what's happening. And this is what the leaders are doing. The same thing again, side by side over the top of the hill, except this time Ronnie Coates has a bit bigger of a slide, but he still retains the race lead. Michael Coates is now up to 3rd as Coimbra goes back to 4th, with Michael Chase in 5th. There's Zach Burke. He's slightly separated as a bunch of the cars in front of him, like Lombardi and Polici, all pitted last time around. But I wonder if this signals to the leaders to follow suit.
There's definitely losing time with all this battling. Qualifying times were mid-35s. Last lap for these guys were a 37.0 and a 37.5. So if they continue to do this, that might be a great opportunity for the people that did pit to accomplish a really good undercut and not have to battle them, get that separation, because the guys that are currently up front are battling themselves.
Michael Chase wants the same strategy, and Brian Zabelski also pits. Pit lane's speed limit here looks like 45. miles an hour. I'm seeing it in kilometers an hour and then trying to convert in my head to a nice round number of freedom units. I think it's 45 miles an hour. There's Alex Harrison going a lap down, doing his best possible to stay out of the way, but the cars behind him still want to steal just a sniff of that slipstream if they can. And Ronnie Coates gets just a little bit, but Camden Hibbett gets a little more, and they're side by side in the braking zone down towards the China Beach right-hander. But Camden Hibbett drops back in line across the nose of Michael Coates, and then Rui Coimbra first, second, third, fourth, and then lap down Alex Harrison. He'll get his lap back when these leaders pit though, so that's nice, I suppose.
For sure, and it feels good. You get to watch their lines, you get to race with them. So even though he's a lap down, I'm sure he's using this time to try to practice because his goal is to be up here one day and be racing with these guys and beat them one day. So it's not just pull over and let everyone fall or blow on by. You try to take in the moment, race as hard as you can, even if you're a lap down. Obviously not affect their lap or anything, but use it as an opportunity to learn.
He had a pretty good race at Fuji, but Mid-Ohio not quite as strong, so maybe he'll be petitioning for the Spec-5 World Tour to go to more Japanese tracks. And you can have that kind of influence in the Spec-5 World Tour if you're one of the gold tier supporters. They get some nice little perks like that. Ronnie Coates is being super defensive of this race lead. They picked up a little more speed that lap they just completed into the mid 136s, but it looks like the fastest lap of the race is a 135.5, so there is still just a little bit of time out on the table.
Yeah, so they're about the same pace as Ray Lombardi and Palucci and Michael Chase behind them. So the difference isn't going up and down, and that's exactly what they want to see. They do not want to be losing time to the people that have already pit.
Coimbra looks like he needs to save a little bit, or maybe he missed a shift or something, because for a second there, Alex Harrison was almost bumping him along down the back straight. This is our top four here. Coimbra's right back with them now, but there was an odd moment there. Oh, that looked like it was going to be wide from Hibbett. Coates drops back a little bit as well. It's looking super interesting as we're heading towards the end of the pit stop window. And we have just 8 cars that haven't stopped yet. We have 7 cars that haven't stopped yet.
Yeah, as we see Camden jumping in.
Yeah, and not followed by those behind it. Interesting. So now it's Ronnie Coates, Michael Coates, Rui Coimbra, Zach Burke, Tom Athon, Orlando Herrell, and Matthew White that haven't stopped at the moment. Contact between the leaders, a big checkup. Ronnie Coates nearly goes around. Michael Coates almost comes to a complete stop, gets hit from behind by Rui Coimbra, and again, that undercut, it's looking pretty good.
Definitely.
There's a second pack as well.
And Zach Burke is making up a lot of time on these guys too, so he's going to be able to draft off of them, and this could be his reintroduction to the battle because for him, it's easier to keep a pace in a draft for sure. So he's caught all the way back up. He was, I believe, a couple seconds behind him for a little bit, but just the battling and then some good laps from Zach, he's able to close that gap all the way up.
Longest stop from Camden Hibbett there, longer than everyone else we've seen. And he rejoins the track behind a train of cars that had already stopped, led by Ray Lombardi, Eugenio Palicci. This is it here with then Michael Chase, Dalston, Brian Chabelski, and then not looking good for Camden Hibbett. And a lot of that's not even the battling that we saw happening out on track. It's just the 22-second stop compared to everyone else's 16, 17 seconds. Without that, I think he'd still be ahead of Ray Lombardi and this group. It's not really an undercut. It's just an abnormally long stop from Camden.
Yeah, and so no one else pits in the lead group. So Coimbra, Coates, and Burke all stay out. So they're really stretching this field as far as they can.
Tom Athon, though, does stop. Once upon a time, the open class champion and then promoted to the pro class. Matthew White from open class pits as well. So left with just a few cars that haven't stopped yet. Most drivers have. There's Gilliland and Greg Mack and a few other cars going past before Tom Athon can get out of the pit lane. And he might be side by side with Geordie Fike. Michael Coates leads right now, and he has a bit of a squirrely moment. The sun's come out, the track has warmed up just slightly, and the tyres are just subtly past their best at the moment, I think.
Especially for the guys up front, they haven't had a chance to cool off their tires, so those ones are holding on as much as they can. Still hitting mid to high 36s of their lap times. Michael Chase able to hit a 35.8 last one, so he's put in some really good laps. Ray Lombardi, who's leading that pack, 38.2, so slightly quicker than the lead pack. And yeah, I think this undercut might have been the right choice.
Yeah, not looking bad at the moment for Ray Lombardi and that group of cars that are stopped, as their lap times are pretty consistent. But then Michael Coates hits a 1:35.8 in the race lead, so he's doing okay for himself, and the lap times are getting traded back and forth between, on your screen right here, cars that haven't stopped, and then 32 seconds behind them, Ray Lombardi, Eugenio Pellicci, and all these other drivers who have been through the lane, topped off their fuel, and are good to race all the way to the checkered flag.
Which is just over 15 minutes to go, so these guys probably going to be diving in real soon. Got to be real low on fuel. So we'll find out how this shakes out soon.
This is the race lead. Ronnie Coates getting up close and personal with Michael Coates. Yeah, and then Coimbra back ahead of Zach Burke, closing them. Most drivers in the 35s and 36s once again. Towards where the pit entry is, round the outside of this carousel, and I do not see any of these drivers except Zach Burke going for it. He peels off, leaving the leading three out there, and now runs down the lane in search of his crew to top off his fuel.
It looks like Tom Athon pitted the lap before, so he has completed his pit stop and came out just a couple seconds behind Geordie Fike, or just a couple tenths of a second, behind Geordie Fike. So he's hooked up with him. They're going to try to catch that pack. There's 4 seconds between them and Greg Mack, so definitely accomplishable if they're able to put in some good lap times, team up, and not battle too much.
And for Andrew Gilliland, he's just ahead of Greg Mack, but it was a very short stop, shortest stop of all for Andrew Gilliland, who very well, pardon me, might have some savings still to do for his fuel towards the end. Lombardi and Zach Burke now battling. Not good for those drivers in what you were going to call the undercut position.
Yeah, as Michael Coates goes real wide coming over that crest, so loses a little bit of time there. Rear end came out pretty heavily, but he was able to save it, keep that power on in the grass, didn't lose too much time. Just showing off for the fans a little bit.
I always love, as we have a couple of other cars pit, no matter the series, no matter how competitive, there's the same number of people in the stands everywhere we go. They won't show up for F1 testing, but they'll show up for Spec-5 World Tour racing and pack out those grandstands. So here's Ronnie Coates and Rui Coimbra, both of them hitting the stall. No one that I've seen doing anything as far as tyre changes is concerned. The cold tyres are just too difficult to bring in before you really don't get that much advantage out of them. You'll lose 5 seconds to try to gain 2.
And the tires do cool off while you're in pit lane, so you're able to hit some good laps as Coimbra and Ronnie Coates are able to jump out, line in lined up. Burke just a little bit behind him, 2 seconds behind him. So he's going to try to run him down with Ray Lombardi right behind Zach. So this might be a pretty good pack.
Yeah, so there's Coimbra and Coates trying to stay away from the group behind that Zach Burke has rejoined just in front of and will soon be stampeded and run down by. The driver out front still leading laps is Michael Coates, and he looks to really, really be pushing on. Everywhere we go, there's a lot of attitude.
Too wide going through Monster right there. We got Camden Hibbett on the inside of Michael Chase. Ooh, a little bit of context as Camden goes over the curb. Everyone's able to make it clean, but definitely heating up back here. These guys want to make their way to the front of this group as soon as possible.
Camden Hibbett's got a lot of work to do after that long stop if he's going to salmon his way upstream in the pack here to try to catch Rui Coimbra and Ronnie Coates, which could be the battle for the lead, depending on where Michael Coates comes out in all of this. But yeah, we saw Camden Hibbett matching lap times, trying to battle Ronnie Coates for the lead earlier on. Now he's a handful of cars back with a lot of work to do.
And Michael Coates still staying out, so he has done a fantastic job keeping that fuel tank, sipping it, not using too much fuel. So he'll just have probably about 10 minutes after he gets out of the pits, assuming he pits this lap. But yeah, I'm very impressed with how much he's able to save.
Camden Hibbett going for another move, making just a little rub on Eugenio Pellicci through the keyhole corner, but Hibbett goes through, and he is one of the quickest drivers, multiple race wins to his name here in Spec-5 World Tour. And I think he'd be one of those drivers, one of those names you see coming up behind and you go, oh, he's a little bit back. Oh, he's all over me now. And now he's through. But Pellicci won't give up on it too easy. Doesn't find as much grip around the outside there as he was looking for. And that position that Hibbett has gained, he will keep, as Pellicci then comes under attack from Michael Chase, who senses an opportunity to drop down the inside. Michael Coates will pit from the race lead, and if he has a good one, a good stop, he could keep that race lead. Otherwise, he's trying to face off against Ronnie Coates and Rui Coimbra, who you can see on the track map where they are coming around relative to Michael Coates in the lane.
And Coimbra and Ronnie Coates have actually created a little bit more of a gap to Zach Burke. So they did a great job in pit lane and then their out lap to really have that difference in pace.
It's going to be close, but Coates is rolling. He's on the pit exit, and around turn one on the outside of the pit exit comes Ronnie Coates and Rui Coimbra, and they are going to bear down on him quickly. And Coates could take the lead here if he looks to the inside on the race lead, but Coates has him covered off. The battle is on in the final 10 minutes.
So as much as I thought the undercut was going to work, looks like staying out is the call that worked out for these guys. That's why they don't pay me to think. I'm not smart enough to use my brain. But 3-car pack for the lead, and they got a decent little gap. So if they line up, I say that as they go too wide going into Chino Beach, but they have a decent gap. They might be able to hold off this train or keep the train going and keep a gap to the next pack.
But Camden Hibbett is coming. He's just set his fastest lap of the race. He's just passed Ray Lombardi at the keyhole turn number 2. Now he's all over Zach Burke. Could he be the conductor for train number 2 to reel in the leading 3 in the final laps of this race? He's obviously giving it all of the track, and right at Zach Burke's rear bumper, looking for an opportunity. They come to Thunder Valley there. And Hibbett, I think we can pretty confidently say, isn't going to need to do any fuel savings, while there's still a few drivers around him in the second part of the race that might need to. We're going to get a move into turn 1 perhaps here.
Looks like he's going to stay in line, just trying to push Zach Burke all the way through. But yeah, I would be very surprised if he did not try to make a move going into Keyhole or China Beach. Definitely pushing him out of 1, staying in line. Kind of popping out. There we go. Pops out to the inside. Camden's making a move for P4.
Couple laps now, he's decided that's his passing spot. And he's up into 4th now. So Ronnie Coates, Michael Coates, and Rui Coimbra, the leading 3, settle into their groove. Camden Hibbett, I think after his pit stop, he was almost like 10th, 11th. He was to the tail of this pack, and he's worked his way through. He's past Polici, he's past Chase, past Lombardi, now past Zach Burke, and up into 4th place, 3.5 seconds away from the race lead, despite taking 6 seconds more fuel.
And just having the ability to work your way through the field, sometimes that can give you the confidence where you can push. And like we said, 3.5 seconds to the group in front of him. It's going to be a hard take for him to make it, but especially if they start going too wide, because those guys aren't going to just want to settle for second and third. There's going to be opportunities for him to catch back up.
I wonder if the fuel number for the leading 3 is an amount of fuel where they've still got to save like they were in the early stint of the race, or if they took enough to now go flat out, because those are your 2 real strategies. Is, do I try to get a bit of track position, but then I still need to do some savings, or do I want to set myself up to, save in the early part of the race, but then take enough fuel to go flat out? Camden Hibbett was quicker than them by 6 or 7 tenths there on that lap just completed. I would be getting a little bit nervous if I was maybe Rui Coimbra.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and that's with them lined up. Once they start battling, which is going to happen, that number is going to be exasperated even more. So great pace from Camden Hibbett. Let's see if he can close it up.
He's bringing a couple of +1s to the party as he goes as well. Zach Burke and Ray Lombardi sitting in line. I'd say it's all still looking good for Zeus Dalston as well, because he's in the 8th outright there, leading open class, and as you can see, got Polici and Jabelski between himself and Gilliland.
Hibbett pushing a little bit wide into the grass. He's able to keep the throttle in it again, so not really losing time. He's using all of the track and more.
Camden Hibbett's dropping them. Look at this gap now to Zach Burke, who's a little defensive with Ray Lombardi and Michael Chase. Underneath 6 minutes to go here. And we're set up for a very, very interesting finish. And a very tight finish all the way through the top 10. And then you have the other battles out on track, like Greg Mack being caught by Geordie Fike. Geordie Fike has dropped Tom Athon, and last time we really checked in here, those 2 were together. So Fike making forward progress here.
Yeah, and we see in the open class, Zeus has pulled more than 5 seconds on Andrew Gilland. So he's in a very comfortable spot, being 3 positions higher, that, he's able to maybe take some risks and try to pass some people in front of him, not having to worry about the other open class cars around him.
Underneath 5 minutes, and it all hangs in the balance of Michael Coates and Rui Coimbra saved something to challenge Ronnie Coates for the race lead. Can Camden Hibbett catch them? What's going to happen in the rest of the group with Zach Burke now coming under pressure? Michael Chase coming under a little bit of pressure. Junior Polici getting a little bit closer to Dalston. And then Andrew Gilliland also lapping super quickly. Now he's had his repairs, but will his fuel make it last? Ray Lombardi losing a position, I think, here. I think Michael Chase has just gotten through on Ray Lombardi, as we're going to have 3 more laps of racing. Leaders crossing the start-finish line.
Yeah, Michael Chase going defensive into turn 1. Clearly, he feels that he needs to make the move so he can make his best run at trying to get up to Zach Burke and trying to pass him. Zach actually doing a good job. Kind of like lost Camden and lost that draft, but since then, he's held pace pretty firm. So that pace is coming back to that 13 car.
Rui Coimbra has just dropped a little bit away from Ronnie Coates and Michael Coates. And I think it has to do with the fuel for Rui, as he was 2 seconds shorter than Coates and Coates at 14 and a half seconds compared to about 16 and a half for these two out in front. And Ronnie Coates was saving big time in the early stint. He hasn't completely saved his rear tyres though, and the curbs and the elevation will perhaps dramatize that a little bit and make them look a little greasier than they actually are as the car gets light over the hill.
Yeah, and especially as we come into these last laps, we'll see who might have cut it a little too close on fuel. They'll start dropping off, and then who's able to push to the end, because some of this pace might not be reflective of their pace the last lap or two, where they're more focused on crossing the line than what's going on around them.
But we've gone from mostly cloudy to only partly cloudy in Lexington, Ohio, and the track temp is up. Look at that, 88 Fahrenheit now. It was, I think, 10 degrees cooler, the track surface at the start of this race. And now with the sun beating down on it and the time in session heading closer towards midday than the mid-morning that we sort of all kicked it off with qualifying and that, the track is getting hotter, maybe getting a little bit greasier, and the tyres have all been worked hard all race long, all through the field.
For sure, and Michael Chase is able to close that gap really quick to Zach Burke. So after making that move on Ray Lombardi, he's got his eyes on a top 5, and honestly, maybe even Camden. Camden not as quick as he was a couple laps ago, as we see Michael Chase making a move to the inside of China Beach.
Chasing is one thing, passing is another. I think Murray Walker said that. Not exactly, but that's certainly how it looks, because while Michael Chase can close in on Zach Burke, it's tough to make that pass happen with Zach Burke now behind Camden Hibbett. Hibbett now 5 seconds away from the race lead, so he's dropped 1.5 as we've gone on, and this is 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, with a leading trio still to decide on the final lap. White flag, I'll get a double check on it, I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure we'll be heading into the final lap with Ronnie Coates, Michael Coates, and Rui Coimbra separated by less than 1 second. Yep, Barney's definitely got the white flag in his hands, beating the living daylights out of it to let us all know one more lap of Mid-Ohio.
And it's been an exciting race. I want to see who's able to hold on. This is where pace against the track doesn't matter. You got to have the confidence to put your car in different lines, different places, and sometimes try to psych people out, as we see going into the keyhole 2x2 is Camden Hibbett's under attack from Zach Burke and Michael Chase trying to take advantage of it, and they're going to have a good run going down into China Beach.
That's where the best seats are going to be on this final lap, because there's a little bit of a rub there between 4th and 5th. There's nothing to separate 1st and 2nd either. Everywhere you look, the racing is on, like Michael Coates going around the outside of Ronnie Coates in the China Beach, now leading the race. But what about 4th place between Camden Hibbett and Zach Burke? Similar is going to happen there, but Michael Coates has made the move stick. He leads the race, and there's not many good passing opportunities from here to the checkered flag. We'll see it, but it's falling apart for Camden Hibbett. Zach Burke gets through. Ray Lombardi wants a bit of that. He'll get it. Michael Chase will get it. Dramas for Camden Hibbett as he's plummeting down the field. Michael Coates is going to hold on by the looks of things through Thunder Valley, over the top of the hill, in towards the carousel here. So long as he gets cleanly off of this corner, having covered the inside, the checkered flag is going to be waiting. Michael Coates out the final corner. It's going to be by a small margin, but he'll win Spec-5 World Tour at Mid-Ohio, and your podium is 0.4 of a second. Behind them comes Zach Burke, Michael Chase, Ray Lombardi, Eugenio Polici across the checkered flag. And Camden Hibbett is still tumbling. Zeus Dalston takes the open class win from Ryan Jabelski, and the rest of them are all going to get Hibbett before the line. Catastrophe. He's run out of fuel. Something went wrong in that pit stop, because it took him 22 seconds, but he does not have enough. Well, What a thrilling finish there. And the order looks like this. Michael Coates from Ronnie Coates from Rui Coimbra, all in a line at the checkered flag. And Zach Burke in fourth. A bunch of guys making up spots at the end here, like Michael Chase, Ray Lombardi, Eugenio Polici, Zeus Dalston, as they all profited from a horrible final lap from Camden Hibbett and Brian Jabelski into ninth. Andrew Gilliland for that early damage, the repairs, sneaking his way back into the top 10 and second in class. And there's Geordie Fike, Greg Mack, Tom Ayton, Orlando Herrell, Camden Hibbett, all the way back in 15th when fourth looked possible. And Matthew White, Sean Hayes, and Alex Harrison complete our 18 finishes. Apparently, Tom Ayton had an exciting final lap that we didn't see, but Alex, we can be forgiven. There were so many places to look.
For sure. There was nose astern for top three, and then 2x2 for the second pack, which would be fourth place on. So fantastic racing, great track, great driving, and like great job by these drivers making this really exciting.
So our winners will stop by shortly. You can see that Joshua Soto and Charles Vaccaro, for whatever reason, didn't end up taking the start of the race, but our pro winner is with us, Michael Coates. Congratulations. It was so tight for the race lead from the drop of the green flag all the way to the end.
You know, it really was. It was a great race. All the guys, you know, as usual, everybody as clean as we can be, and turned out to be a pretty good race and somehow pulled it off.
The pit strategy, I guess, was pretty interesting. You know, we had a big lead group. It splintered, and then a bunch of guys came back towards the front. It got a bit touch and go, bit of side by side happening. Bunch of drivers elected to pit early, try to undercut you, but you stood firm, one of the last drivers to pit with the late stop strategy.
So that was kind of my strategy going into it, and I feel like usually when I mess with my initial strategy, everything goes, you know, sideways. So I figured I'd just stay out until I ran out of fuel pretty much, and I timed it perfectly and somehow managed to fuel enough to get through the race. I was a little worried about Camden's, you know, Camden made a major undercut, and I was really struggling, I felt, on a lot of laps, so I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I just stuck to my strategy, basically, initially.
Did you get a sense that maybe some of the drivers you were around at the final part there had to save a little more fuel than you?
You know, potentially, but I mean, I try not to figure that too much. I just try to know, like, I need to hopefully have enough fuel myself to, you know, be able to give it everything until the end, but that doesn't even always work out. I'm kind of curious to see how my pit, you know, timing went compared to everyone else, but I don't know. It is, you know, it was all right.
Well, a super hard fought win. Your club Pennsylvania, so like one state over. Does it feel like a little bit of a home track here at Mid-Ohio?
You know, almost. I've never really been there, obviously, but, well, I guess not obviously, but I've never been, but, you know, maybe one day, you know, maybe, hopefully. But it was a great race, and Ronnie, like, you know, battled hard, and as usual, Rui was right there at the same time. I feel like a couple of my mistakes might have hurt him too. It's just, but that's racing, I guess.
Well, congratulations once again, and I think with the points lead that he's got, Ronnie Coates won't be too flustered that you've taken a few off him today, and you can well-deservedly put them to your tally.
Thank you much, David. Much appreciated.
Michael Coates, pro class winner, and there's one more to talk to. It's the open class winner, Zeus Dalston. Good qualifying, exciting race, a few lucky breaks, but a good finish.
Yeah, very lucky breaks. I'm just happy that I could keep up with Ray. Like, that was my whole strategy, was just stay with him and Eugenio and Michael if I could, and I managed to. And yeah, I thought Andrew might even catch back up at the end, but I think he must have been fuel saving or something because the gap kept kind of kept the same time. So yeah.
Now, always a good day as an open class driver when you can squeeze a couple pro cars between yourself and your next rival. But, you know, as Greg Mack dropped back a little bit, Andrew Gilliland kept closing on you.
Yeah, I figured Andrew would, like, after he pitted and got his repairs done, I knew it was going to be gonna get tight. So I don't know if he took a little bit too little fuel. I also appreciate that Camden, his buddy there, didn't take enough fuel, so I got another spot from that. But yeah, I had Shabelski in between us, I think, and like once Camden came behind me and Eugenio was behind me, it's hard to keep those guys behind you. These guys are ridiculously good.
Great race day for the Canadians. Do you think Devin Peters' absence from the commentary booth gives you guys a little boost?
No, I'm super sad that I finally got like a big result and he's not here to see it. Like, you're gonna have to send him the replay.
I don't think I'll take this opportunity to do too much of a Devin Peters impression, but he'd probably say something like, "Oh, bud, good race there."
Yeah, bud, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, top cheddar. That's how we go.
Wheel snipe Selly, mayhaps?
Exactly, you know it.
And how will you celebrate this open class victory?
With a Tim Hortons coffee and a donut, of course.
Regret opening that very Canadian can of worms there, but congratulations to you once again. Only a few races left to go in Spec-5 World Tour. You nab yourself a win.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you guys do a great job broadcasting, and just happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
There we go. Got more Canadian as it went on for Zeus Starlson. His fellow Canadian in the grid is Zach Burke, who finished fourth. Like I said, only a few races left to go in the Spec-5 World Tour for season 15. This has been round 11 from Mid-Ohio. Well, if you thought 2.2 miles was a relatively compact layout for Mid-Ohio, you don't need to worry about that for the final two rounds. In a week's time, we go to the Nürburgring Nordschleife on the Industriefahrten layout of the Nordschleife, so that's a big track. And then we scale it back just a tiny bit. Week 13, the season finale, is at Circuit de la Sarthe Le Mans, historic layout, which is no chicanes on the Mulsanne. So Alex Coffard, that is going to be something to behold for the season finale and our final two rounds.
Yeah, there's definitely some draft packs here formed, so I can just imagine the packs that are going to be happening at really both those tracks, but especially going down the Mulsanne Straight. That's going to be a great opportunity to go 3, 4, 5 wide and kind of use it as more of a strategy game, putting yourself in position where the draft can overcome just regular straight line pace.
I think we might have to get the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers or something involved with the kind of train we'll have at Le Mans. I think once it reaches 10 carriages or something, it's a union job. So we'll see exactly how that one plays out. We look forward to bringing you all of it here on HJBC. Wherever you're watching, make sure to subscribe. So go to the Nordschleife this time next week and to Le Mans for the season finale. Ronnie Coates leads the Pro Championship, and with a second place today, he maintains a firm grip on that. The graphics have Orlando Herald, but once you factor drop weeks in, Andrew Gilliland is still looking good for the open class, but nothing is decided till the end of Spec-5 World Tour. We'll see you in a week's time for round 12.